So today we have a session that is focusing more on practice, not necessarily on philosophical knowledge or deep understanding. It's more about nuance of how to apply the practice. And Alan, hi, Alan, Bo. Nuancing. So until we start, I can open with good news that I wanted to share with you. Human Spirit is inviting young Tzir to come to Israel. He's gonna come on the summer of 25, so June, July 25, in a year from יונתן תבוא איתו. לא אולי, יונתן תבוא איתו. יונתן ארקמי. יאנג צירים פוצ'ה, הולך לבוא לפה בקיץ 25, יוני-יולי. עם יונתן. He's gonna give a retreat in Human Spirit, but because he's coming, Yonten said, let's organize more activities with Shantideva group, with Dharma friends. Let's do other retreats and other activities for people outside of Human Spirit. So Human Spirit is going to organize a little committee, and I guess with some of us and Dharma friends, and is going to organize all his activities in Israel. So prepare for next. He's really a teacher that is worthwhile meeting and being with in his presence and studying with him. And so Young Tzir Rinpoche next summer. So we will need to organize some things and benefit from this program. So these are the good news. Yeah, משהו לצפות עליו. קיץ 25, יוני-יולי, הם צירים פוצ'ה ויונתן, מי שמכיר את יונתן, הנזירה שלימדה אותו, לימדה פה, והם יגיעו ביחד. מי לא מכיר את יונתן? לא, יש הרבה, יש נהדרת. עוד שנה וחצי. כן, אני כבר שם, מנטלית אני כבר שם. יש למה לצפות. כן. מורה בסדר גודל הזה לא מתכנן מעכשיו לעכשיו, אבל מתכננים קדימה. So these are the good news. And today we're going to have something a bit different from what I usually prepare. I was inspired and influenced by an interview that I just took a snapshot of the screen. There is a guy, the young guy on the left, is calling himself Guru Viking. And he's interviewing many people related to the Dharma. You can see him on YouTube or on Facebook. And he's interviewing people that are usually very interesting. Some of them I think are more valid sources. Some of them maybe are a bit questionable in my eyes. But some of his interviews are very interesting. And he was interviewing this guy whose name is Damarato. I think, I'm not sure. I think he was a monk. Nowadays, it's hard to say because he has no signs of anything. So I don't know if it's hot in Thailand and he just took off his robe or there are no robes now. But he's a very experienced practitioner. And he has a very unique view about the practice. He criticizes lots of the habits of practicing in the West. In this session, sorry? No, he's from the Thai forest monks tradition. He's criticizing many of the habits of practicing in the West, like Wenka and Mahasadi, which I don't really know what it is. He says that you injure yourself sitting in a posture that is not supporting you, you do sleep deprivation, then you cannot be focused and clear. He has lots of criticism. but he also has some many nice ideas. Some of the things he said I didn't agree with, but he offered a very nice perspective to our practice that is very accessible, very practical, touches the things on the surface, and I think very, very easy to apply, as if taking principles of the Eightfold Path on each moment of meditation. Very sweet. So this is what we're going to do today, and I found it reflects in the sutras that I chose. So we can read the sutras and see how she applies what he recommends. Okay? So ברעיון הוא מציע איזושהי גישה מעניינת ליישם עקרונות מה-Eightfold Path, מהדרך המתומנת, לכל רגע של תרגול. זו איזושהי פרשנות מאוד ייחודית, לא אופיינית לבודהיזם טיבטי, אבל נראית לי מאוד פרקטית, מאוד ישימה, מאוד בקצה האצבעות, וזה יכול להקפיץ את התרגול שלנו קצת. ומצאתי את זה משתקף בסוטרות שבחרתי, ובגלל זה חשבתי שנעשה את השילוב הזה. So before we start, let's start with the entry meditation. So let's find a good posture, comfortable one. That will support us, that we feel at ease. Let's take few deep breaths to establish our mind here and now. Let's check our minds today. How did we come? Is our mind clear, focused, at ease, or is there some confusion or agitation or tiredness or blurry? What kind of state of mind do we have now? Let's try to focus on the breath for a while. Now that the mind is more focused, more relaxed, we can set our motivation for this session. And we can think we are here in order to train the mind, to cultivate the mind, in order to be less deluded, in order to be more connected to reality and to others. So we can act in the world in benefit in a more substantial way. And from this motivation, we're going to have a session that investigates tiny details of the practice. That if we can apply it on the cushion, we'll train the mind so we can apply it outside of the cushion. With the wish to benefit every sentient being, we will do this session. And we can come back slowly. So I will send you the presentation after, then you'll have the link and you can find it on YouTube, or you just write Go Viking and you find him and you can see different interviews that he gave. So what I was thinking to do today is to review some of the principles he presents, to read the sutras, and then take some time for practice to try and apply what he's teaching us, or giving a new light on something we already know, but it's a nice perspective. כן, אז אנחנו נלמד קצת, נראה בסוטרות וננסה לתרגל לאור מה שהוא מלמד. So we start with the eightfold path. If we go on the Four Noble Truths, right? Which is the essential teaching, which all the path goes into this Four Noble Truths. True path is the way to go out of samsara, is the way to take ourselves out of suffering. True path in the Pali tradition goes on very concrete activities. בארבע האמיתות הנאצלות, כשאנחנו רוצים לחפש את הדרך האמיתית, הדרך הנכונה, זה איך אנחנו יוצאים מהסמסרה, איך אנחנו מחלצים את עצמנו מהסבל, ובפאלי טרדישן מציגים את שמונת האיברים האלה. So the first one is right view. In general, it's viewing the eightfold, the eight noble truths. The four noble truths. I'm reading in Hebrew, I'm thinking in English, and then it doesn't go in. כוונה נכונה, right intention is basically to go for compassion. We have right speech, דיבור נכון. which is not lying, not divisive, not harsh, not idle talk. Right action, פעולה נכונה. Not to take lives, not to steal, not to do sexual misconduct. Right livelihood that is not based on wrong speech or wrong action. Right effort to cultivate good qualities that did not appear in my mind yet and to abandon negativities. Right attention, which means mindfulness basically, which are the 4 close placements of mindfulness, mindfulness of body, feeling, consciousness, and all the mental states. And right concentration, which are the different levels of concentration. דרמה ותופעה זה מילים מקבילות בפאלי או סנסקריט. אז לפעמים מתרגמים ככה, לפעמים מתרגמים ככה. הכוונה היא לכל המצבים המנטליים השונים שיש. So we're not gonna go through all these 8, but why am I presenting it? Because this guy that I heard his interview, he said we're gonna take 3 of them and apply them in a bit of a different interpretation in every moment of practice. So we're gonna use right view, right effort, right attention in practice. So how are we gonna do that? He offers something like this. He says, the first one, we start with sati, with mindfulness. We need to be very mindful with what happens in my mind now. Not before, not after. What is happening now? And it's something that we need to be very relaxed to be able to see clearly what's going on. You know, the analogy is like a surface of a lake. If the water are very, very calm, we can see very, very deep. So we start with something very relaxed. We set up the body in a posture that we feel at ease. We set up the mind in maybe focusing on the breath or just relaxing. When we are relaxed, then we take the inside look. We take the mind inside and we start to explore what is going on in my mind at the moment. אוקיי? זה מודעות מלאה למה שקורה בתודעה שלנו עכשיו. התודעה צריכה להיות מאוד שקטה, רגועה, יציבה, כדי שנוכל לראות בבהירות מה קורה בפנים. ואנחנו נשקיע קצת ברוגע ובשקט, להתמקם בצורה נכונה, ליהנות גם מהנוחות של הגוף, להשקיט את התודעה על ידי מיקוד בנשימה או סריקת גוף, ואז נתחיל להפנות את המבט פנים, נחקור מה קורה שם. And then he says right view. And he says right view, in this specific interpretation, is a very concrete thing. He says it's not an attitude. It's not an approach, it's an investigation. And we need to investigate what characteristics are there, what defining characteristics are there to what happens in my mind. Is it beneficial or not? Is it virtuous or not? Am I experiencing now unease or pleasant feelings? Am I happy or suffering? Am I creating causes for happiness or causes for suffering? What is going on in my mind now? Is there content? Am I happy or discontent? So it's not just enough to say, okay, I'm thinking of my mother. And then what? What's the internal talk? What's the emotions? What's going on in my mind? I need to be very clear with this investigation to see if it's neutral or virtuous or non-virtuous. אוקיי? אנחנו נחקור את מה שקורה בתודעה, זאת ממש חקירה.
בדיוק, זה כבר הופך להיות לויפאסנה.
כן, כן, אנחנו נחקור ואנחנו ננסה לזהות האם יש חוסר נחת או נחת. לפעמים אנחנו יושבים ועולה איזה סוג של מתח. קוצר רוח, חשש, עצבים, ממיליון סיבות. האם זה מה שנמצא לי בתודעה עכשיו או שדווקא יש? מה יש? רוב הפעמים זה יש שלילי. אני מניחה שבתוך סשן אחד יכולים להיות גם וגם 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 וגם, אבל יכול להיות שהשלילים תופסים נפח. Norit says that maybe most of the time we can find the negative things happening in my mind, and I'm saying maybe not necessarily by volume, but maybe when we have negative feelings, it gives a very strong impression. because
more attention to
we give more attention to it because we don't like it. So it takes a lot of, but this is the investigation. Am I experiencing now ease or unease? מרוצה או לא מרוצה? שקט, נחת או לא? סבל או עושר? Okay? We analyze. So we have the right attention to what happens in the mind. And then we check what flavor does it have. And then he says, let's do now right effort, which means if I recognize, if I identify something that is not virtuous, is not beneficial, I change it immediately. For him, it's very easy. So you just change immediately. And he says like this, you apply the teachings of the Buddha since first moment of practice. Because he said, some people give you such complicated explanations for everything that it takes years until you see some benefit. Buddha says we suffer. We want to go out of this suffering. I give you a method. You just identify suffering, you switch.
But it's
Wait, stop it. That's it. Soon we're going to discuss how. But first, I'm presenting all the ideas, so we'll have the frame of work, and then we see how we can do that. אז מאמץ נכון, הרעיון הוא לצאת מסבל. כל הלימוד של הבודה זה איך אנחנו יוצאים מסבל שהוא לא הכרחי, שאנחנו מייצרים לעצמנו. אז אם אני ייצרתי אותו בתודעה, אני גם יכולה בתודעה לשנות אותו. וזה הרעיון. אני מזהה סבל, אני רוצה להיחלץ ממנו. זה כל הטיצ'ינג של הבודה. אם אני יודעת ליישם את זה, אז בכל רגע תרגול אני מיישמת החלצות מיידית. Sometimes when you talk about suffering and renunciation, going out of suffering, in Tibetan Buddhism, we give a very big framework, right? Who says there's samsaric suffering, and then we have some aversion or disgust, and then we have renunciation, the wish to go out. And he says this is too high, too far, too big. I want now something very concrete in my moment of meditation. I don't think the two are contradictory. I think the big framework is essential, but he gives us a very nice perspective. How can I relate to unease that arises in my mind in a certain moment of meditation?
But it's very dangerous to just switch. I mean, if you lie to yourself, you're not ready yet to just switch. It's kind of dangerous because you end up lying to yourself.
Yes. So we don't want to lie to ourselves. So the question is, how do we let go?
Exactly.
Of an unvirtuous state of mind that now takes hold in my mind? This is the question, right? So this is.
Is it good thought? It has benefits? And if you see that there's no longer a need, good thought because it doesn't need.
Doesn't serve you.
Yes, so you don't need it. So it's not lying or something. You did the investigation. You realize it's not a good thought.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it doesn't give any benefit. It doesn't promote you.
So the effort is to
let go.
Let go, not by lying. It's not lying. It's just I did it. The investigation and knew that.
Yeah. Sometimes we investigate. And we see that I put a very judgmental, unpleasant view on myself. Definitely not beneficial. Definitely not helping me to evolve. Now, can I drop it?
I think it's more watching it than trying to push it.
Yeah, so let's see. He's really offering. He wants right effort, as if we really put effort into switch. This is what he offers. Yeah. Let's see. We don't have to accept. We just I expose you to a new perspective. You can take it or not. Right? We don't have to. So let's talk about the right view. The right view is important before we read the sutras. The thing is, we want to identify dukkha in our minds, and they use the word dukkha that is translated into suffering, but dukkha is more subtle. It doesn't have to be like big dramatic suffering. It can be just a little impatience that goes in my mind, or a little unease, or a little annoyingness, right? It can be subtle things, but I need to identify them, and this is not always easy. to identify them. לזהות את הסבל שעולה בתודעה שלנו, זה לא פשוט, זה לא חייב להיות סבל דרמטי, לפעמים זה רק חוסר נחת, לפעמים מתרגמים את זה חוסר נחת. חוסר נחת זה דבר מאוד מעודן, קשה לפעמים לשים עליו את האצבע. So, for example, I think something, like I'm supposed to be focused on the breath, and then I have a thought, what should I have for lunch today? And then I'm starting to be very judgmental. Oh, I should not think of lunch. I should not leave the breath. How can I not be still focused after so many years of practice? Oh, I'm a horrible practitioner. Oh, maybe I should stop practicing. And I start to torment myself. This is dukkha in my mind. And it can be big and small. It's just, sometimes it's just like, again, this is dukkha. And sometimes is, I should. All these sentences that start with I should, they put stress in their mind. I should be more advanced. I should be more. So how do we identify these things? And it's like enough, like what you said, when I try to push something, there's also stress in my mind. If something arises and I'm not willing to accept it, and I start to fight with what comes, then there's stress. נכון, אם עולה בי איזשהו חוסר נחת ואני לא רוצה, אמרו לי שבחרו לי את המדיטציות, אמרו לי שזה כיף, שזה נחת, שזה רוגע. פתאום נכנס מתח, לא מוצא חן בעיניי, אני מנסה להדוף, אני מייצרת לעצמי עוד סטרס בתודעה.
And also denial is dangerous.
And denial. If I feel uneasy and I say, no, I'm fine, everything is fine, there will be stress, right? Because I'm not in touch with what's going on. So all these things, we need to be very attentive and to know how to identify. And this is a practice. Just this part of having a very clear view of what's going on in my mind, this is a practice. Can I really see it only when it arises, very small, before it goes into a hurricane and takes all over the mind, but just this slight unease, expectations, hopes, denial, fighting with reality. You sit and suddenly something comes that you didn't expect. You don't like it. And once I label it, I don't like it, to see the stress in the mind. Okay? This is what he offers. He says we need to be very attentive with what comes. I have 10 more minutes to sit. I want to wake up. I want to stand now. It's enough. It's enough. I cannot stand anymore. You know that you say I'll sit for half an hour and after 5 minutes you cannot bear it anymore? Suffering in my mind. Right? I did Tai Chi. When was it? 2 days ago. We did Tai Chi. And we do Sanchuan. You stand in one position for a very long time. And I stand. And then I have pain in my shoulders. But I let go. And then it's not painful anymore and I stay. But then at one point I decided that it's enough. I had enough. And then I cannot bear the pain. And then I get impatient and oh, he must finish. Yeah? And I can see it in my mind. And he didn't stop. And the longer I said, but we must finish this now. I created my own suffering. He didn't do anything. And I was totally at peace 2 seconds before I decided that it's enough. So I created my own suffering just to see that. Okay, just to see how I create my own suffering, and then maybe I can do something with that.
What you can do. So what is he offering?
Yes, we'll see now. So he says something very nice, and this is how I called the session. He says, once I see this uneasiness coming up in the mind, I say, aha, I see you, Mara. And he says, this is exactly what we saw in the sutras, that the nuns that are very peaceful and they are doing their daily routine practice. Each time we see little suffering in our minds, we say, I see you now. You're not going to trick me. As if we take some distance. We don't identify. We don't let it power over us, to swallow us and identify and feed it and be the thing itself. Okay? And when we say, I see you, Mara, then let's talk about what is Mara. And he says, just by seeing you already start to change. Because if I say, I see you, Mara, that you are playing with me, I'm not identifying. And then I take some distance, and then I can maybe work with this thought that arose in my mind. Okay? So when you check what is Mara, I took the remark of Karen Arbel, which I took the sutras from her book. And she says that Mara, we can see it in two different ways. One is really the representation of all the mental afflictions, all the deluded states of minds that we have. But they call it Mara as if it's a representation. Yeah. Yeah, it can be, but first when you say Mara, usually it's the afflictions. Like when I say, I see you, Mara, it means I see unease in my mind, I see craving, I see grasping, I see attachment, I see aversion, I see anger. I see you, Mara, I see these states of mind in my mind. Sometimes they present him as a real being, right? In the sutras, as if they had a dialogue, right? As if he's an outside creature, and they have a dialogue.
Mara in action. No, but it can also be like good instructions, because when Buddha, before he got enlightened, Mara was like, כאילו פיתיון, ניסה לפתות אותו, כאילו לא להגיע.
Try to seduce him.
כן.
Yeah. Yeah, Mara was, the story of Mara is a part of the story of Buddha who got enlightened, right? When he was sitting under the tree, and Mara came. And Mara sent all of his weapons, all of his soldiers, and his chanitot vechitzim, arrows and spears, you say? But this is really, I doubt it if it's the real life story of a Buddha, but it teaches us. Right? And what does it teach us? That once Buddha realized that it's inner voices in him, it's all the fears in him, then the spears and the arrows became flowers and fell down, which means he said, aha, I see you, Mara. I see fear, and he could dissolve it from within. And then Mara sent his daughters to seduce him in a disguise of very, very beautiful seductive factors. And Buddha said, I see you, Mara, which means I have desire. He saw his own desire. And he could let go. And then the beautiful women became very old and ugly and like witches. So even in the story of Buddha trying to get enlightened, which is an analogy to teach us his teachings, this story of meeting Mara is meeting his inner fears, delusions, obstacles. So it's really proving that to be a Buddhist is an inner being. We always look inside. And if you look inside, then you can do the shit. Then you can do the job, because the fear is not outside. The fear comes from within. And this is the story. We will see now the sutras. The nun Sela sits under the tree in her routine place after her routine morning practice, very peaceful, and suddenly fear comes. And the fear comes from within. Nothing jumps at her. There is no animal, no risk, no danger. The fear comes from within. The confusion comes from within. The doubt comes from within. And she did. And in the three sutras, they say, aha, Mara, I see you. They see that it comes from within, so they can deal with that. And this is what we are trying to do. Okay?
It's not just to see that it comes from inside, it's not to identify. Once you see it, you cannot identify, and then it's like,
yeah,
disappear.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's all why it's important from within or from outside. If you just don't identify, you don't identify with something from within, you don't identify something from without.
Right.
Yeah, but from within I have control. If I sit in the woods and a tiger comes to attack me, a fear that comes from outside, better to stand up.
I wish I had control over my anger when it comes from within.
Yeah.
I don't think I do.
Yeah. This is what we try to do. This is what we try to do. the thing is that many times we think, or we perceive our inner Mara as something that is necessary or must happen or is related, or we don't see control or our control in it, which this is the trick, right? That everything that comes in my mind, I can play with it. Because it came in my mind, so I can play with it. Even if it seems impossible to control or impossible to reduce. Everything that comes from within my mind, I can play with it. Things that happens outside, maybe I have no control. I have no control of what other people say, or what other people do. What comes in my mind, I can play with it. More successfully, less successfully, depends how skilled I am. But I can play with my mind. I cannot play with the outside in such a full control way. You see, and she just mentioned that the daughters of Mara are craving, passion and aversion, like the names in Pali or Sanskrit. Reading the, yeah. So when we say, aha, I see you, Mara, it means my inner sight is very clear and I can identify what's going on in my mind. And usually it's the mental afflictions that I want to deal with. Okay? Let's see the sutras. So we have 3 sutras on 3 different nuns. The stories are very similar. Sela, Vajira, Suma. 3 nuns. Let's read the first one. So for this, I need to go. Just a second. Yeah. Okay. So we read in Hebrew. It's okay. So we start with the Sela. It's from the book of Divrei Buddha. From
ספר חדש.
נכון, לג'אנות. קרן ארבל, translated. So it says like this. בסבתי. בבוקר התלבשה הנזירה סלע, נטלה את הגלימה העליונה ואת הקערה, ונכנסה לסבתי לאסוף אוכל. לאחר ששוטטה בסבתי ואספה אוכל, חזרה לאכול את הארוחה היומית. לאחר הארוחה שמה פעמיה לחורשת האיש העיוור לשהייה היומית. לאחר שנכנסה לחורשת האיש העיוור, התיישבה הנזירה סלע מתחת לעץ, כדי לבצע את התרגול. Okay, the beginning is a very routine, the essence of the routine practice, takes her things, beg for food, eats, sit for the practice, very peaceful, very calm. אז ניגש אליה מרה הרשע, שביקש לעורר בה פחד, בהלה וקהות חושים ולערער את הסמאדי שלה. So we see that Mara comes and she has fear and confusion. And once you have fear and confusion, there is no more concentration. Samadhi is concentration. So if you have fear, if you have confusion, if you're like taken out of balance, you cannot keep your concentration. And she needs her concentration. That's right. לאחר שניגש אליה, פנה אליה מרה בשיר. על ידי מי נוצרה דמות זו? בעצם מי יצר אותי? דמות זו זה אני. היא עכשיו פתאום מבולבלת, לא יודעת מה קורה. על ידי מי יוצרה דמות זו? היכן יוצרה של דמות זו? היכן נוצרה הדמות? לאן היא תיעלם? So we see confusion that goes very deep, like the questions of who am I? And what are the causes to create me? And what happens next? It's a very deep confusion. בדעתה של הנזירה סלע עלתה השאלה, מי הוא המדקלם את השיר, אדם או שד? עוד קודם כל היא לא, she's not identifying, right? She can take some distance. אז חשבה הנזירה סלע, מרה הרשע מדקלם את השיר הזה. מה שהוא אמר, מרה, אני רואה אותך. מרה הרשע מדקלם את השיר הזה, זאת אומרת, עלו בי פחד, בהלה, קהות חושים, וזה מערער את הסמאדי שלי. היא בהירה מאוד פנימה, היא מבינה מה קורה לה בתודעה. לאחר שהבינה הנזירה סלע שזה מרה הרשע, ענתה לו בבית שיר. דמות זו לא נוצרה מעצמה, והצער הזה לא נוצר על ידי אחר. היא טבע בגלל סיבה ויעלם עם התפרקות הסיבה. כשם שזרע נזרע בשדה, צומח הודות לאדמה הטובה וללחות, כך גם המצרפים. מצרפים, גוף ותודעה, היסודות, ששת מרחבי החושים, הם יתהוו בגלל סיבה, ויעלמו עם התפרקות הסיבה. אני פחות נכנסת לחלק של הריקות, פה אנחנו נדבר על זה פעם אחרת. אני רק רוצה להמחיש את מה שהוא אמר ברעיון. אז הבין מר הרשע, הנזירה סלע מכירה אותי, ונעלם משם. נעלם משם, מה זה ומיוסר? אז יש עוד מילה, עצוב. ונעלם משם, עצוב ומיוסר. Okay, they really make Mara as if he's a living creature, so she knows me. So he goes away sad and unhappy, right? Which means if I can recognize my own afflictions, I don't identify with them and I don't take ownership on them. I just see them coming and I can apply an antidote. In this case, she applied the wisdom of emptiness. It goes. And she can gain back her stability and samadhi and concentration and clarity, everything that fear and confusion took away. So all this story, I had fear and confusion, but I could see them coming, say, aha, Mara, I see you. And I could deal, I could apply some wisdom, and I could gain back my stability and clarity. Another story like that.
זה ממש מסתיר שעוד.
אני לא מכירה. So now we read the one on Vajira. מאוד מאוד דומה, very similar. בסבתי, בבוקר התלבשה הנזירה וג'ירה. They have very strong routine, right? נטלה את הגלימה העליונה ואת הקערה, נכנסה לסבתי לאסוף אוכל. לאחר ששותתה בסבתי ואספה אוכל, חזרה לאכול את הארוחה היומית. לאחר הארוחה שמה פעמיה לחורשת האיש העיוור לשהייה היומית. לאחר שנכנסה לחורשה, התיישבה הנזירה וג'ירה מתחת לעץ כדי לבצע את התרגול. אז ניגש אליה מר הרשע, אשר ביקש לעורר בפחד, בעלה וקהות חושים, ולערער את הסמאדי שלה. Same. She has fear, she has confusion, she loses her concentration. לאחר שניגש אליה, פנה אליה מרה בשיר. And here again, the fears are really the essence of who am I, and how things come about, and really the essence of ignorance. על ידי מי נוצר יצור זה, היכן יוצרו של יצור זה. היכן נוצר היצור, לאן הוא ייעלם? בדעתה של הנזירה וג'ירה עלתה השאלה, מי הוא זה המדקלם את השיר הזה, אדם או שד? אז חשבה הנזירה וג'ירה, מרה הרשע מדקלם את השיר הזה. הוא מבקש לעורר בי פחד, בעלה וקהות חושים, ולערער את הסמאדי שלי. Don't be confused by the formulation as if Mara wants to raise fear in me. She had fear in her. She had fear and confusion, and she lost her samadhi. This is just the phrasing, as if it's a story, as if there's a demon coming. But this phrasing means, I could see you, Mara. I can see my fear, I can see my confusion, I can see that I lose my concentration. ואז היא עונה לו, מדוע אתה מניח כמובן מאליו שיש יצור? מרה, השקפתך חסרת שחר. זו ערימת התניות ותו לא, אף יצור לא נמצא כאן. כשם שצירוף חלקים יוצר את המושג מרכבה, כך בדיוק כאשר המצרפים מתאגדים, ישנו יצור בהתאם למוסכמה. רק סבל מתעורר, נשאר ונעלם. דבר מלבד סבל אינו מתעורר, דבר מלבד סבל אינו חדור. אז הבין מרה הרשע, הנזירה וג'ירה מכירה אותי, ונעלם משם עצוב ומיוסר. It's so sweet, no?
מדהים.
Each time that I read that he goes away sad and tormented, like it's such a beautiful way of presenting it, no? Once we just see what goes on in our mind, it can fade away. We just need to be very clear with what we see. We have so much power over our mind, we don't even know it or realize it. Maybe it's much easier to get rid of some delusions than what we think. The last one, the last one on Summa has a tiny difference. It talks about doubt. Doubt about being a woman. Because at that time they had the perception that women are inferior, נשים נחותות יותר, אין להם חוכמה מפותחת, הן לא יכולות להכיר ב-emptiness. Also, it will be worse and worse now, yes. Yes. Alex, maybe we all go to Russia with you.
But for 2 weeks to get
Russia needs a lot of Buddhists.
yeah.
Yeah, let's go. we go, you stay, and we switch and we see how it goes. So let's see. Here she also gives a nice remark. What does it mean, חורשת האיש העיוור, the blind man, or the black forest? בסבתי. בבוקר התלבשה הנזירה סומה. נטלה את הגלימה העליונה, את הקערה, נכנסה לסבתי לאסוף אוכל. לאחר ששוטטה בסבתי ואספה אוכל, חזרה לאכול את הארוחה היומית. לאחר הארוחה שמה פעמיה לחורשת האיש העיוור לשהייה יומית. יש כאן הערה, מה זה האיש העיוור? תסתכלו על הערה מספר 1. הפרשנות התרוואדית מספרת כי בתקופתו של הבודה קסאפה, תקפו שודדים בחורשה זו את קוסטה, בעל הבית, שהשיג אחת מדרגות השחרור, ועקרו את עיניו. כתוצאה ממעשה זה התעברו השודדים ושוטטו בחורשה כסומים. קוראים לזה, there is a story, what does it say in English? The forest, the black forest or the blind man forest? Blind man forest?
The grove of the blind.
The grove of the blind. So there is a story here that the time of the Buddha Kassapa,
מה זה בודה קסאפה?
שם של אחד הבודות הקודמים לבודה שקימוני. There was the landlord, the owner of this village or this forest. He was very high in attainments. He got some kind of liberation, and the robbers, burglars came and they took out his eyes. And as a punishment, they got blind, and then they walked around in this forest and they could not see. So this is the meaning of the name of the forest. Okay. לאחר שנכנסה לחורשה, התיישבה הנזירה סומה, מתחת לעץ כדי לבצע את התרגול. אז ניגש אליה מרה הרשע, ביקש לעורר בפחד, בעלה בגרות חושים ולערער את הסמאדי שלה. לאחר שניגש אליה, פנה אליה מרה בשיר. את המצב שקשה להשיג, השחרור, אך חכמים משיגים אותו. אישה אינה יכולה לממש עם חוכמה של שתי אצבעות. מה זה חוכמה של שתי אצבעות? תסתכלו בהערה. מרה מציג השקפה מסורתית שסבורה כי חוכמתם של נשים מוגבלת ונחותה. הפרשנות מסבירה שהביטוי חוכמה של שתי אצבעות נובע מכך שכבר מגיל צעיר למדו נשים לבדוק אם האורז מוכן על ידי מיחד גרגר אורז בין שתי אצבעות, ובזאת התמצתה חוכמה. Do you have in English what did Mara told her?
Yeah. That which is to be attained by seers, the place so very hard to reach, women can't with a 2-inch discernment attain.
Yeah, so there is an explanation here. A woman can't with this 2-inch or 2 fingers. It means that at the time they thought that women are really unevolved and they cannot really figure out a complicated thing. The only thing they can do is check with 2 fingers if the grain of the rice is soft enough. So this is all the wisdom a woman can have. But look, Mara here is an inside out. Can I do that? Maybe I am, like everybody says, good enough only to check the rice grain, and I cannot do that. Right? It's not somebody from outside blaming her in something. It's an inside out. Say, can I really go up to liberation? אוקיי? ואז ההמשך הוא אותו דבר. בדעתה של הנזירה סומה עלתה השאלה מי עומד אקלם את השיר, אדם או שד. חשבה הנזירה סומה, מרה הרשע הוא המדקלם את השיר, משום שהוא מבקש לעורר בי פחד, בהלה וקהות חושים, ולערער את הצמאדי שלו. לאחר שהבינה הנזירה סומה שזה מרה הרשע, ענתה לו בבית שיר. מה חשובה הנשיות כאשר התודעה אסופה ויציבה? ההבנה היא מנת חלקו של כל מי שרואה נכוחה את התופעות.
כל הסוטרות האלה בעצם לגמרי התוודעות לריקות.
זה התוכן.
זה של ההתוודעות.
נכון, לגמרי. מי שהמחשבה, אני אישה, אני גבר, או אני משהו, עולה בדעתו, ראוי שמרה יפנה אליו דברים. Right? She is clear, she is applying antidote, she is applying the wisdom of emptiness, and she had doubt, I'm a woman, maybe I cannot go so far, and then she reminds herself, a woman is just to identify with a very temporary character, it does not define my mental capacity. And then she could dissolve it, and then מרה הרשע הבין, הנזירה סומה מכירה אותי ונעלם משם עצור. אוקיי? כן.
Mara is coming to visit Buddha, and then Ananda tried to push him away. He doesn't want him to come, but he had to, because Mara said, the Buddha told you he doesn't want to meet me, so we understand that he had to let him in. So and Buddha was delighted. He was so happy to see me. And then they sit like in friend, and Mara said, "Oh, I'm so tired of being Mara. All the time people are afraid of me and they think I'm so bad and they don't want to be next to me. And I want to exchange with you. I want to be a Buddha and you be a Mara." And then I was really frightened that this might happen here. And then the Buddha told me, "You think you have a tough life? Don't you know how tough are my life? All the time my pupils, they say other things than I say. They say the things that I do differently and they don't follow the real meaning of what I'm intending to teach. Your life is better than mine."
That's
So,
nice.
יש
all
הרבה
I'm
מערות.
kidding.
Yeah.
Nowadays there are many marrows. You can physically hit the surface place.
And from within, and from within. Mm.
Within us and in front of us too. They don't recognize it.
Do you remember the story of Angulimala that we read last week? Angulimala was a vicious murderer, right? He was not just killing people, he was torturing them, taking their fingers, making a necklace, being very happy in abusing and torturing. And when the Buddha wanted to meet him, and he started to walk there, everybody warned him, said, "Buddha, don't go there. He's killing whoever he sees. 20 people, 30 people, 40 people went there. He killed all of them. Don't go there." And Buddha went. And he got this warning first time, second time, third time, and he went there. Because he had no fear. And he could meet Angulimala to see more than what other people saw. Right? He is not controlled by Mara. He has no fear. So he could see the potential beyond his current actions. And once he did it, he could transform Angulimala. Because it's the first time that somebody approaches him and see him as a person more than just what was really strongly manifested. So this understanding of Mara can be from within. So I understand my mind better in a moment of meditation, but it's also the way I approach others. I know that like I have Maras, they have Maras. And if somebody is controlled by his Mara, I can have more understanding and more compassion because I know my mind and I can know the minds of others.
It's like Thich Nhat Hanh talking to American soldiers when they were in Vietnam, and he was like just talking to them to relax them that there are Vietnamese people who are not guerrilla fighters. So they would know that's not everybody in Vietnam wants to fight them.
כן, אני חושבת שההבנה של מרה, אם אני מבינה איך התודעה שלי עובדת ואיזה תעתועים יש שם, אז אני מבינה שגם אחרים זה עובד ככה, וגם להם יש תעתועים. אם אני יכולה לראות את התעתועים שלי, אני יכולה גם לראות את התעתועים של אחר, ואז אני יכולה להתחבר עם הרבה יותר חמלה, הרבה יותר חיבור, הרבה יותר הבנה, הרבה פחות שיפוטיות. אני מבינה. Okay, let me see. I want to just give you the essence of the practice, and then we do a little break, and then we come back and we practice. Try to apply it. So I just show you something else, and then we do the break. So basically what he's telling us is, remember to look inside, because sometimes in meditation, we're a bit spacing out, or we're a bit lost. And he said, don't lose your focus. All the time, look inside, check what's happening in your mind, and analyze. Do I have unease? Do I have dukkha? Do I have some kind of agitation? Do I have something coming? Okay? And if I identify, not necessarily they are there all the time. I can have many times that I'm at peace. But if I identify something that is troubling me, then to put effort to change it. Maybe by, he said, do it again and again and again until you cool down the fire of the afflictions. It's not something we solve once, but we do it repeatedly again and again and again to cool down the mind.
מעצים אותו? לא, הביטוי להתאמץ לשנות.
כי זה מאמץ נכון, כאילו, כי הוא יושב על הקטע של מאמץ נכון, אבל אני מבינה מה.
אבל לשנות גם למה? להתאמץ לשנות למה?
לנחת, חוסר נחת לנחת.
זה בעצם להשקפה נכונה, בשורה התחתונה.
כן.
זה
לקבל, זה לשחרר. כן. אז ככה, אז מה, so how do we practice? And this is what we do after the break. We start with some kind of anchor. We either focus on the breath, or sometimes some people just like to hold an open space, like the spaciousness of the mind, and then we observe what kind of thoughts are coming. So even if we hold the breath, thoughts will come, and even if we hold an open space, thoughts will come. So we start with something. First, we need to be very relaxed and focused, because otherwise we will not have a clear gaze inside. So we start with some kind of anchor to relax. Then we look inside and we see what kind of thoughts arising. Does it take the peace out of my mind or not? Doesn't have to. If I realize that something is not virtuous, is a source of suffering, I would like to let it go. How do I let it go? Few ideas. One, we can give it a general category. It's just a thought. I don't go into the content of the thought. זאת רק מחשבה. אני לא אומרת, אחותי אמרה לי ככה וזה מכעיס אותי, ולמה היא אמרה לי ככה, אני לא יודעת, מחשבה. Right? It's a thought. Or a feeling. Sometimes I feel so like I have a pain in my knee, or like I did when I did this, okay? I had a very unpleasant feeling in my shoulder. I can just say a feeling or physical sensation. And it helps. It's just like saying, who is giving this song, Mara or a demon? Like who is, I take distance. I'm just saying, Mara, I see you. So this helps me to take some distance. If it doesn't help, another way is you can actively change the focus. Instead of open space or breath, let's change the focus into the body. The body is a very strong anchor. It can really ground us and really shift the focus. When I'm thinking, oh, my sister did this and I'm angry and it doesn't fair. Okay, now let's check on the body. Where do I feel this anger in my body? Like if I feel this anger in my body, I know that my throat is a very sensitive area for me. My throat is immediately reacting. I can focus on the throat. And then slowly start to expand. And try to look for other sensation all over the body. It takes the focus of the self-inflicted, non-virtuous thoughts. Okay? So this is another very strong method that once you identify something that takes the peace out of your mind, you shift into the body, you check where do I feel it in the body, and then slowly you expand, because a deluded mind is very narrow. It's very narrow.
מה זה דלודד?
תודעה מתועתעת. I'll say it in both languages. Deluded mind is very narrow. It's very limited. You ignore many things. You just take something and you exaggerate it. You're very limited. If I go on the body and slowly I expand, the mind expands as well. There's some more space there. We can shift from a very deluded, narrow state of mind to something wider. תודעה שהיא מתועתעת, כל מחשבה שהיא מתועתעת, היא נורא צרה. היא לוקחת אספקט ומתמקדת בו, היא שוכחת או מתעלמת באופן אקטיבי מהרבה מאוד דברים אחרים, לוקחת משהו אחד מאוד מגזימה אותו. ואז אנחנו מרגישים נורא לחודים, נורא צרים, נורא מצומצמים. זה חלק מה-correct view, שאנחנו יכולים להתחיל להתאמן ולזהות כמה צרה תודעה של השתוקקות, של כעס, איזה תודעה מצומצמת זאת. ממש מרגישים כשהלב פתוח, איזה תודעה רחבה, וכשהלב מצומצם, כועסת, כמה זה צר. ואנחנו מנסים לפתוח ולהעביר לתשומת לב לגוף, אני מתחילה מרגישה איפה זה מתבטא בגוף, אז אני מתחילה ככה לפתוח לכל הגוף ולכל התחושות. פתיחה של הגוף פותחת גם את התודעה.
יש לי שאלה. דווקא מה שהם עשו בסוטרה, אולי נגיד באנגלית, maybe what we read in the sutra is a really beautiful technique of imagining our distractions as an external being.
And
I
having a
think
dialogue with him.
not having a dialogue, but just seeing it as something external, I think it's
Dissociating.
very helpful.
Disassociating.
Again, it's very helpful because
Okay.
I mean, I think it's also like, yes, this is
Helping you to take some
Yeah.
distance. Yeah, right. We can see the thing coming in our mind and give it a really personalization, and it's an
not
outside
me.
demon.
Yeah.
It's not me.
But then what is the essence of my control if it's something under me?
It helps you not to identify. We are trying to find ways. It's like at the middle link, not to identify. So after this, you need to drop and to cultivate something else to get peace in your mind. So if it helps you to take some distance, not to identify with the anger or with the attachment, or if it helps.
I think the sutra says that you don't actually have to do it because one lives on his own.
Once you know reality.
Yeah. Then it will go.
And this is the third method that we can do that we see in the sutras. We can apply the antidote. We can talk to ourselves and remind ourselves of why this mind is so deluded, and either we apply wisdom of emptiness, or we can apply love against hatred, or patience against impatience. I can see something that arises in my mind, and then I try to deal with it. I try to take distance. I try to expand the mind, and I try maybe to put it outside and apply the antidote, different ways to help it to let go, so I give back peace to my mind. This is what we try to do. It says you have dukkha, unease, recognize and put effort to change, then you have peace.
It's the first age.
Just like
First, I would say, Rashana.
Ezra Rashona.
It doesn't go to the root, so it goes.
It doesn't go to the root, but he says that there is a discussion there. He says that all our habits are very up on the surface. He says you don't really need to dig deep. All your habits are on the surface. If you have a habit of anger, if you have a habit of it will manifest. All the habits are on the surface. Start to deal with them.
See,
Like what? What does it contradict?
because it talks about getting to the root.
The root of ignorance.
Because it says that, and the philosopher said that you have to realize the emptiness, and the emptiness is the ultimate antidote. So if you just realize the emptiness of this specific habit, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, but there is something, even just to see that the fear comes because of some circumstances, and it will go soon. This is realizing its emptiness.
This is the discrimination of the five mental kilo, 5 kilo mental זה ששויים בכל כאילו. When you have the discrimination, you discriminate something. And it's, כן, it's something that is, זהו, you discriminate it. You say to yourself if it's this or this or this or this. כן, אז זה כאילו, when you recognize it's, you discriminate.
Yeah, I don't think it's superficial, because I think you can do it only of a very deep knowledge is accessible for you. Right? It's like
you won't see it.
Yeah, otherwise you cannot have a clear insight inside. Otherwise you will identify. Otherwise you cannot apply an antidote. Otherwise you cannot shift your attention. I think these things are they are not as superficial as it seems, because we need a very deep understanding of many things to apply them.
Just to recognize all the different,
Yeah.
situations and
Yeah.
you need a different.
You need it.
I also thought about the blind, the Ha'var and the veil,
Can.
but the blind forest.
Yeah.
Blind man.
It's like they are going there on purpose, because if you go to somewhere that blinds you, that's my interpretation. Then you go to see things and you go to check things. And
You go deeper inside.
Yeah, so that's what they do.
Nice. Yeah. There is something I think very interesting. I had last sentence and we go for a break. I had an interesting discussion in human spirit. We talked about something and somebody asked this shift between responsibility or regret and self-blame. בין חרטה לאשמה. and says, how do you do this shift? That you feel regret, you take responsibility, but you don't feel so, you don't stuck in these circles of feeling guilty. And I think for this, you really need to understand many things from the past. The emptiness of the mind and the emptiness of the self and circumstances. And you really need to know many things, and it's a support not to get stuck in this guilty episode. Right? ההבדל בין להיות אשם לבין לקחת חרטה, כי זה אחד מהכוחות המטהרים, זה אנחנו צריכים הבנה של כל הדרך, מבינים ריקוד שלי, ריקוד של התודעה, למה דברים עולים, איך דברים מתהווים. זה עוזר לי לא להגיד, אוי, אני איומה. אלא זה עוזר לי כן לראות, עשיתי טעות, פגעתי בי, פגעתי באחרים, איגנורנס עברה אותי באותו רגע, אבל אני יכולה לשנות, אני יכולה לצאת, אני יכולה להתפתח. Many things seems very superficial if you don't understand the full path, but once you understand the full path, then you have lots of depth into every change you want to do. So also here we can drop things because we have a deep understanding, not very superficial. Okay, so let's have some tea and chocolate and sugars.
I just want to say that 2 weeks from now, I'm going to the States, coming back after 2 weeks, so in a month we want to have a meeting.
מה שנעשה עכשיו זה ננסה לתרגל. אתם תרצו שאני אשים על המסך את השלבים שיהיו מול העיניים כדי למקד אותנו בכל... הנה. בית מפנק, בית מפנק. מערכים מפנקים. What are we going to do now? We're going to practice and we'll take, let's say 10-15 minutes for that, I think. And I think I'm not going to guide it. Each one will go through his own process in his own rhythm and his own time. First, calm yourself down. Focus the mind, collect the mind. So focus on the breath or on the belly, whatever you are accustomed to. Take a few minutes just to calm down. Then try to look inside and see what is the nature of the thoughts arising in your mind. Is it peaceful or not? Do I have stress or unease in my mind, or I'm happy and relaxed? If you're happy and relaxed, just continue. And just work on focusing. If I'm distracted, let's say I'm thinking of lunch, but it doesn't arise any stress in my mind, just I'm distracted. Then I'm saying, okay, I'm distracted, I go back to the breath. That's it. But if some of the thoughts that are coming are starting to be unpleasant, to take the peace out of the mind, I have some impatience, some worry, some fear, some confusion, some aversion, some anger. If these type of things happen, then first put energy into identifying really what's going on and try to see the root. Can I share your example? So we were discussing on the break that Orly, thank you. Orly just got a message just before entering the session that her daughter is on ski vacation, and she got a message that the daughter fell and broke the hand. Okay? And then there's a lot of fear and a lot of worry, a lot of things. But to really apply the antidote, to counteract it with something to get the peace back, you need to know what is the root of what is disturbing you. I worry, okay, but what else? What is the inner talk? I wish she would not switch into snowboard. I wish she would do what I told her. I wish. And then you go deep, 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 deep. You see what is the root of what is disturbing you, and then you can counteract it. Okay? So it's not that you have control over outside reality. She broke the hand. I wish she didn't, but this is not in my control. But my worry or my aversion or my wishes that are not always realistic, this I can deal with. Okay, so this is what we do. We try to see what comes in the mind. Maybe it's peaceful and nice, it's just this normal distraction. I go back to the breath. But if there is some unease there, I don't like the meditation, I don't like the session, I don't like to sit, I have pain, I'm angry at something, I'm dissatisfied. What's going on? And then I try to investigate, why is it there? And if I see the root, can I counteract it? Either by saying a thought or a feeling, either by going to the body, you remember? Where this stress manifests in my body, and then to expand a bit, to feel the whole body, or to really counteract with another state of mind, opposite state of mind. Okay?
I think it is very helpful to remember, at least I do that, not to have any expectations, because it brings on stress.
Yeah.
You can go through the whole process, find something, and it's quite okay. Okay, I
Yeah.
found it. You don't have to resolve it,
Yeah.
at the same.
Yeah. It takes time also to get friends and familiarity and skills with a new technique. Maybe it takes time. We are never experts on the first time. Right? We start to explore. So do you want me to give you a notice every 5 minutes to do a little gong, and then like I take a few minutes to calm myself down? No need. I give you the space. Okay. Then let's sit.
So 15.
15 minutes? Is it too much? 15? Do you want 10 or 15? Good. 15. Good. 20. Let's start with 15 and see if you really would like to continue. You just raise your hand like this, and then we do 20. But let's start with 15. Okay, so let's sit comfortably. Find a posture that will support you, that will be good for you. And we start. לשתף? Somebody wants to share his experiences or her experiences? Yeah.
I just heard, like I was focusing on the breath all the time. There's some
The leaves, the kids.
No, the kids.
Mhm.
In my ear. So, but I try to be very focused and very concentrated and didn't let it really penetrate in my mind.
So there was no aversion or annoyance.
It was unpleasant, but I still concentrated in the breath.
Okay. Yeah. To detect that something is unpleasant is the start, is a good step. And then we can check if this unpleasant is disturbing the mind. Is it harder for me to focus? And if it does, can I do something to release this unpleasantness and just say it's a noise? I have no issue with this noise. Like the leaves that are moving is pleasant, but the children are unpleasant. These are labeling that I made, that I can change.
I'm going with the noise because I'm habit from yesterday. Last night they had a party. It's a family, new family within the from Brazil. They had like some really noisy party. And then I couldn't do anything. I just was so angry and frustrated. How come they're doing throwing such a party this time? And it's not the time to have a party. And they don't think about it. Maybe I should go and say something I didn't before. But then I went on and I said, I saw that were things that I do that make other people angry in this time of the world. And I found many.
No, but that's a very interesting practice.
Yeah, that are inherently annoying. Well, and I do Buddhism. I concentrate on myself. I work on myself. I support groups that are not that other people don't support. I do all sorts of things. I go into a lot of things. And then I looked back, and then I saw that my mother was very musarit,
righteous,
strict with the more very strict. We had to think not lying, everything was very tough. And I remembered how it made me feel then. And then I said, okay, that's enough. And then I brought Buddha, did like the white Buddha and golden Buddha.
Come down. Okay. So
another thing. And today also now they're playing. How come they're playing now?
but you could see a change in your attitude to the noise?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, you could see a change.
Compassion.
Yeah. Okay. But this is really like I can see something, I can see the trigger, what does it create in my mind? And I found the antidote that you first investigate that you can do the same things, so you're not so different. Things that you do annoy others, you can go back to your roots, why is it so? And you found this visualization with the Buddha to calm you down.
I thought about the technique, and I found that there are two kinds of thoughts. There are thoughts that are coming from an event that is here and now, something that just happened, or something will happen soon. And I find this technique very good. Okay, but thoughts that are constantly in my mind, that I know from years, and that are very rooted and not related to an event, I don't think it will work.
Did you try? Or it didn't come?
It's not enough time. I will try, but I think it's not enough.
If it's not to solve it, it's just to allow it to pacify it for now, for the practice. It's not to solve deep issues.
But it will come in an hour back, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe for the practice is okay, but it's not
necessarily solving it from the root. Yeah. But for now, if I want to sit half an hour and something comes, and I know that this is the thought that comes constantly, What technique do I do to put it aside to do my practice beneficial? And then I deal with my issues after.
The practice is.
If it's very sticky thought, sometimes they say it's a very sticky thought. It doesn't go away. Attention to the body is a strong tool. Where does it manifest in the body? Then to expand a bit, try to work with the body sometimes just to pacify for now. It can.
Yeah, okay, if it is a technique just to allow me to go on with the practice, it's okay, but. it's not
Yeah, I don't
okay
think it will
for-
solve. No, I don't think it will solve for a deep issue like this.
It's not to have the thought at all. The purpose is not to have the story, to return.
And to bring back the peace to the mind. This is what I mean.
In an hour again.
Yeah.
Okay, but
Constant
you
practice.
still have the skill to return.
Yeah.
From the story that starts, thought, another thought, another thought. So
To
you
stop
can
it.
stop it and return to something.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the anchor, it's the breathing, it's the body, another thought. Okay?
Yeah, then the train doesn't leave, right? It does a train of thoughts that can go very far. If I see it just starting to embark and I go back to my body, maybe it will never go. That's the idea.
It started very nice. And I was very calm. And I could follow my breath. And I was even excited about the future. And then I started to think about the war. And then I realized how much it's big and I have no control over it, and I just putting it aside, and I couldn't.
Go back to your peace.
No. The only thing that is relaxing me is that this is the thing that I should do. This is the only thing that I could do, like this meditation. But it still feels like terrible.
The war feels
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah, it feels like terrible, the feeling that you cannot do anything.
That you cannot do anything.
May I say something?
Yes.
Or you want to say something, of course.
You sure? Please.
Okay, I have thoughts about what Alona said and what Enough said. So about Alona, I thought that, at least for me, studying the Dharma, we said that it's not superficial. I mean, you need a great knowing to practice. To study the Dharma and to understand the roots of things and stuff, maybe could help with the big problems, that like lingering again. And about what Enough said, what helps me when lingering זה כאילו נדבק, אני לא יכולה להיפטר מזה. What helps me when negative or different stuff that's not unpleasant comes to my mind is to say, and this is what I told you before, is this is how it is now. This is how it is now. And saying the sentence is just like, just let it be, not to try to solve it, not to get to the story. And yeah, you might have to say it again, but the more you do it, it just dissolves. What?
C'est la vie.
Even Buddha didn't stop with all the wars.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Even
really
at his
helpful.
time, during his time, there were wars.
עכשיו זה ככה. אין בכלל ויכוח, אז את לא מתחיל להתווכח עם הדבר הזה.
Yeah, I think it's modesty is what can. It's terrible because you cannot do anything, but you also have to be modest because you cannot do anything.
I'm not sure,
You
but
can
again, when
probably
you
do
start to think I can do, I cannot do, you start to argue with the thought.
Yeah.
You create a story. You don't want to create a story, at least not that time that you do the meditation. So when you say, this is how it is, תל אביב, או עכשיו זה ככה.
It helps you drop it.
Yeah, very much. And I thought it was very pleasant. We think we need to practice. I need to practice more, and we need to practice more.
Yeah, we can do that.
It was really
More
good,
practice,
nice,
yeah.
and then that's it. So
Yeah.
it's lovely. And when I started to feel my leg getting numb, I said, okay, it's probably like 15 minutes soon.
I can hold it.
Yeah.
You can move as well. Huh? You can move as well. The realizations are in the mind, not in the knees,
Right.
and not in the limbs.
And then your leg is numb, and then you have an itch, and then
Right.
But this is
very
very
discomfort.
yeah. But this is very interesting to observe, because when the mind is unpeaceful, the body is.
Exactly.
And explore it. Like I start, I have an itch, then I itch, and this is so satisfying. In a nanosecond, I have an itch here and an itch here, because the mind sees that I'm following his wishes. And then I say, okay, I don't scratch anymore, and I sit still, and then I check, and all the scratches disappear. So it's very interesting. And sometimes when my mind is so agitated, I cannot sit still. And sometimes when I'm peaceful, even if it's painful, I don't mind, I sit. This is what I explore, the uneasiness in the body and in the mind, and how do I react, and do I have to follow every wish of my mind, or I can stay still and see. And if I follow every wish, then I see that I just get more agitated and not more peaceful. It's really counterintuitive. You think I just do whatever I feel like and I'm gonna be happy? No, I'm gonna be so agitated. But if you don't follow the wishes, then you become very still, very quiet. This is what we need to explore. Alex, you started to say some things, and then you?
Yeah, I can probably relate to the last one. I forgot what I wanted to say. Sorry. What is the most effective way to return to our concentration? If it's to in the mind, stop the wish that I would like to scratch something, then probably that's what I should do. But if it's a little bit stretching and then I will return and have deep concentration, why not? It's the more effective way.
Yes, and that's why each one, but this is really, each one is the teacher for his own body and mind. You check if you do a little scratch, is it good or not? And then you follow what you discover. It's really a personal discovery. I really think, you know, when suffering comes in the mind, because you had a strong experience, right? That the war is so horrible and I'm so small and I cannot do anything. And this is so hard, that suffering was very, very present. And then there's no focus, no peace of mind. I cannot see clearly, I cannot work anymore. This is, I think, the most difficult practice we need to do is how do we meet the first noble truth, the truth of suffering? How do we accept suffering and cultivate the mind through this meeting? It's not that there is no suffering, but how can I work with my mind when I meet this suffering? Because this is the first noble truth. When they say no suffering, it means not to put it aside, not to suppress, not to ignore, but to come into contact with suffering and then see. Maybe this helps me understand compassion, how people are deluded. Maybe it will help me to evolve renunciation. Maybe it will push me to do some things in the world after that will affect the people that are around me, and this will affect around them. So I'm not sitting in the government for big decisions, but in my territory, I can do many things. And so to say, I am very small and this situation is too big, this is already deluded. This is Mara. So this is a place to say, Mara, I see you. Aha, I see you.
כן, זה ממש בוער בי. אני חושבת מכירה אותך, זה לא אותו תקון, שהדרך להתמודד עם התחושת קטנות הזאת והאסון הגדול הזה, זה תחושת משמעות וערך. וכאילו, זו התקופה הכי משמעותית לעשות משהו שאני תופסת כמשמעותית, כתומך, כעוזר לאחר ועוזר גם לי. בעיניי זה רציתי להגיד.
רגע, אז אני רק אחזור באנגלית. The way to deal with this time that is so difficult and painful regarding the war that is so big is to find some kind of meaning, to have some essence or some value to some practices or things that I do, and then I can bear this time.
אני חושבת
דווקא הדבר הזה של המחשבה הזאת על המלחמה, אני לא הייתי משקת את זה לסבל, יש פה כאב מאוד מאוד גדול, צריך לדעת, זה החץ הראשון, אנחנו לא בחץ השני, זה כאב, שאני חושבת שחלק מהעבודה כרגע גם להיות את זה, לא לעשות לפתור את זה, אני דוקטורט מחפש את הנוגדן לכאב הזה, בשלב הזה, כי זה
הכאב קשה, כן.
סבל הוא אחרי זה, אם אנחנו נתחיל לחקור לעצמנו מה לא עשינו מספיק, מה הם יכולים למנוע, איך לא ראינו, איך לא ידענו, איך היינו כאלה שמאלנים קיצוניים שנתנו צ'אנס של מה, לא יודעת. זה הסבל, ואני חושבת שבאמת מה שאנחנו מתמודדים זה כאב ובלתי נסבל. כל אחד איפשהו,
אני לא חושבת שיש אנחנו, אני חושבת שכל אחד יכול לעבוד עם התודעה שלו, צריך להיזהר מאנחנו. יש את הרמה הלאומית ויש אותי עם התודעה שלי ואיך אני מתמודד. Orly says that maybe dealing with the war and the pain is we are still in the first era, that just there is a lot of pain because of everything that happens. It's not necessarily the second era of I didn't do things properly, what can I do? And we can stay just in contact with this pain and bear the pain, because this is also not fighting with reality and accepting what happens and just to be in contact with the pain. But if you feel pain, then you just dare to stay, which is very scary. Very scary. It's very tempting to put it aside because it's too big sometimes. And just to dare to stay with the pain and breathe and see what comes. It's a bit like if you go through the pain, maybe something else will come. If I dare to look at it in the eyes and stay there and hold the idea. But I think it's a very interesting personal investigation. Am I experiencing now the first error or the second error?
Second. The second, yes, second, definitely.
Yeah. And if it's the second, then I can work. If it's the first, it's different. If I just stay with the pain of everything I hear, this is one thing. But then to say, I am so small, I cannot do anything. We are in the second error, and then you increase your own suffering, and this is unnecessary. Right? The second error is just very small insight to say, I'm increasing my own suffering, which is unnecessary. I can do without it. I have enough pain on the first one. No need to add the second one.
And also the denial is the second error, because you'll have to deal with it later.
Yeah. So because I cannot deal with the pain. And this is each time we create our own suffering if we don't meet reality. We cannot bear reality and we try to deal with it in different ways. But this is really a personal investigation. That's why I say it's not we on a national level. Because sometimes I'm in the first error and sometimes I'm in the second error. It's again, but different occasions, different events, I'm in different positions. And that's why I need to really have a clear mind, a clear look inside. Am I creating extra suffering or I'm just staying with the pain that is not in my control? And this we can investigate because then we see our patterns if we go here or there.
Okay.
And it can change in many things. With the same person, it can change sometimes like this, sometimes like that. בטח.
בדיוק כשהתחלנו לטפל על זה, הבת שלי קשרה, והיא התחלת לצאת לבדיקה, ואז איך שהתחלתי לדבר, התחילה לבדיקות נורא, אבל לא מבינה, בקיצור, עכשיו אני הרגשתי את כל הבטן שלי, כי הרגשתי רמת
כאב לך.
כשעשיתי להתרגל ולנשום, הרגשתי את ההזדהות שלי איתה, וזה החץ השני. כאילו, אני לא עברתי את העניין, אני לא עוברת את הכאב עכשיו, אבל בגלל ההזדהות יתר הזאת, אני עכשיו סובלת כמובן. זה ניסיתי, אני קצת קשה.
זה גדול וחזק. זה נורא גדול, זה נורא חזק, וזה נורא נוכח עכשיו. יופי. כן, כן.
ההזדהות זה...
תדעי לך שאין מתנה גדולה מזו שאמא יכולה לתת לבת שלה, שהיא יכולה לבכות אצלה. כי היא תחזיק דמעות מול אחרים, אבל לבכות אצל אמא זאת כזאת איכות, זה כזה פינוק, זאת כזאת נתינה, זאת כזאת... רק זה שיכולת שהיא תראה אותך בווידאו והיא בוכה אצלך, כבר אצלה, עכשיו את תחזיקי את הכאב, אבל אצלה יש עכשיו הרבה, אמא יודעת, הייתי אצלי, זה, דווקא תסתכלי על זה שנתת לה משהו שיפתח לה. Orly said that just as we started, she got a phone call from her daughter with the broken hand, so she went outside and she told her that the hand was horrible and she was crying a lot and she's in pain. So Orly said that she identified so much that she feels the pain now, and it was very hard to meditate, and she was going back to the breath all the time. But I'm thinking that really to be able to go to your mom and cry to your mom is a big source of empathy and comfort, and I think it's a big gift that you gave her. At least it's little comfort in this painful situation. Yeah, I want to show you tiny thing before we finish. We were practicing, or the focus was to detect suffering in my mind and to try to practice how to let go. But we need to remember that in many sutras, Buddha says, don't detect only deluded states, tatu'im, or unbeneficial states or suffering. Detect also when you're at peace. Detect also when the afflictions are not manifesting, because this is as important as detecting the afflictions. Because if we detect only afflictions and we don't pay attention to the places when we are at peace, or even in virtuous mental states, and we are happy and we are beneficial for ourselves and others, if we ignore this and we only say, oh, now I'm angry, oh, now I have attachment, then we get a twisted picture of ourselves as if we are only afflicted all the time. And one source of enthusiasm for the practice and joy in the practice is to see the beneficial side. And Buddha is really putting emphasis on this one. In the 4 close placements of mindfulness, I'll show you. He's reminding me, I'll show you. That's the basis of the sutra of 4 close placements of mindfulness that Asaf Federman was translating. And I want to show you. Yeah, you see, I do in Hebrew and then I'll say in English. כשהתודעה משתוקקת, מבחינים התודעה משתוקקת. כשהתודעה אינה משתוקקת, מבחינים אינה משתוקקת. סולדת או אינה סולדת, מבולבלת או אינה מבולבלת, אסופה או מפוזרת, רחבה או לא רחבה, ארצית או עילאית. אנחנו צריכים לשים לב להכל. הוא לא רק תציינו afflictions. נורא חשוב גם לראות מתי אין. יש בי השתוקקות להנאות חושים? אין בי השתוקקות להנאות חושים. לפעמים אני בשקט, כן, לציין. אבל מגיע לנו. למה שנסתכל רק על החלקים הלא טובים? יש בי גם וגם.
אני משתוקק.
נכון, והנה יש בי חלקים שבאמת אני פיספול, אני לא קרייבינג לשום דבר.
אבל זה ההכנה גם להסתכל, כאילו אם אתה כל הזמן מחפש בעצמך את מה שלא בסדר, אז תראה את זה גם בחוץ.
בדיוק. יש בי איבה, אין בי איבה. יש בי קהות ועייפות, אין בי קהות ועייפות. יש בי אי שקט ודאגה, אין בי אי שקט ודאגה. בסדר, סוטרות שלמות, הבודה אומר, תסתכלו גם על מה שמיטיב. ומה שמצליח, ופירות התרגול, ומה שאנחנו במצב רגוע או מיטיב, או לא נאחז, או לא משתוקק, גם את זה מאוד לראות. זאת המבט פנימה, כל המפגש היה איך אני מזהה סבל ואיך לצאת ממנו. אבל לא חייבים לזהות רק סבל, אפשר לזהות גם מצבים מיטיבים ולשמוח בהם. ואז העשייה זה לשמוח, להקדיש, לזכור, לציין לעצמי. מתי פעם אחרונה אמרתם לעצמכם אני מאושר? בבקשה. יש מוארים ויש אותנו. כי אני רואה את ההשתנות. נכון. So I'll just do in English. There is this sutra of these 4 close placements of mindfulness, and the Buddha really emphasizes not just to detect all the suffering and the sources of problems, but also the beneficial states. And it says, if you have craving in your mind, you say, my mind is craving. But if you detect that there is no craving, you say the mind is not craving. I have aversion, I don't have aversion. The mind is confused, the mind is not confused. The mind is focused, the mind is all over the place. Like you need to see every state, not just to detect the suffering or the unease. You can say, I have craving for sensory pleasures. I don't have craving for sensory pleasures because sometimes I don't have. craving for sensory pleasures. I know better and I'm focused and I'm peaceful. To know that, to notice it. I have aversion, I don't have aversion. I'm dull and tired, I'm not dull and tired. I have some worry and unease, I don't have. So really all the sutra is full with a very balanced presentation saying, if you know how to look inside, you detect everything, the positive and the one that creates the problems. Okay, so this is something we really need to remember, that if we look only on the negative side, I think that the effect will be very heavy, that we say, oh, what's the point of practicing? Look how many afflictions I have. I don't look at anything positive and beneficial that I have. And this is also important to do. So maybe this we can say as homework in the coming 2 weeks until our next session. Try to detect what happens in your mind. Is it going into unease and it takes the peace out of the mind, or not? Or you have some peace and you are focused and you have beneficial states and you are happy and you can note to yourself, look, I'm at peace. I don't crave for anything. And there was somebody that says something annoying and I can see improving. I can see my mind improving. Yesterday, the noise from the neighbors was really agitating for me, and today I'm at peace. I can manage my mind. I can improve, I can change, I can transform. Note the positive side as much as you note the presence of the afflictions. Both are extremely important. Yeah, so let's take this coming 2 weeks and try to look inside and see these states, that states. And if it's an official meditation or if you have mental space, if you see something not beneficial, not virtuous, creating suffering or unease, try to practice letting go and see what happens if you can do it. And if you see something beneficial, then increase and cultivate, be happy and rejoice, and that I will not miss that I have these states of mind, because it's important. It's really uplifting. Yeah, and it creates suffering, enthusiasm to practice. It's nice. מה שמואר צומח. Where you put the light on something, it grows. Yeah. Okay, shall we dedicate? Yeah. Yes, please. Somebody else wants to dedicate? No? Okay, so let's think a bit. We may think that all the positive potential we have created, all the merits that we accumulated from coming here, wanting to put time and energy into cultivating our minds for the benefit of others. So we dedicate time and commitment and intention, and all this effort that we put into doing it leaves an imprint on our mind. And this imprint is a source of happiness. This is the merit. And we would like to offer all of our merits to everybody who needs a cause for happiness. People that are suffering in body or in mind, in any way possible, we offer them our merit, so they will be free of suffering and they'll have peaceful minds, so they could deal with every trouble they are facing, and they will have happiness. And this will be our contribution to the peace and harmony of this world, of this area, of this time. Extra on anything else that we do. The wish that they will be happy, the wish to give them our merit, is our way of cultivating our mind in order to really shape our behavior and thoughts, everything in order to benefit others. Come back. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Let's look at what else to do.